matter who you are, where you are, what your choices have been, and what karmic timelines and contracts you have journeyed, the light is calling for the reunification of all aspects of life in this realm now. It is calling for the cleansing of all polarities. It is calling for the rising of all sacred heart centers now. All are being summoned home to the greater light now.
Hi, and welcome everyone to Whole Soul Masteries, Sounds of Circles, Heart Sharing in the Round today. I'm here with Renee Tainter, Paul and Nancy Panzica, and Del Sol Etienne. And I'm so grateful to be joined by you and to join together with you today to really talk about what's in our hearts. You know, we're nearing the end of July 2021, and we're on the cusp of August. And when I feel the frequencies of the energy that's on the move, I've been really feeling the energy of the 8-8 Lionsgate. It's already been like tapping me on the shoulder, getting my attention. I think it's going to be a very significant portal. It always is a very powerful portal of energy. I was born in August, so I think I have a particular resonance with that energy of Leo and the lion and the power of who we are as these incredible cosmic and quantum and soulful beings. But given the heat on the planet, given all the energies that are stirred up, you know, their things cannot be shoved under the proverbial rug anymore. No matter who anybody is and where they live in the world, I think no one is untouched by the level of change and the summonings to change and the summonings to rise and remember more of who we truly are. We are all being touched by this energy. And I think the 8-8 Lionsgate is going to further empower us to awaken to those God codes, those divinity codes inside us. So I want to bring that into the conversation today. And of course, in my transmissions and the messages that have been coming through, there's this awareness and energy of floods and the Noah's Ark and things that we thought were in biblical times in the past are kind of showing up in our present. And so we see some flooding going on in the world in different parts of the world. I think certainly in China, there's places, I think it's in Belgium and maybe Germany. I know lots of countries are affected and impacted by these crazy rains. And then also it's impacting the dams, and some of the dams are collapsing. And so we are seeing evidence in real time now of some of these biblical times and these floods. And my understanding is I think we're going to have floods on a lot of levels, not just physical water, but also floods of awakening and summonings to revelations and truth. And so there is a lot going on in our world swirling about. And the thing that I wanted to maybe focus on first as we talk about these times of incredible epic change is something that the guides talked about. Certainly last year in 2020, they were talking all about 2020 clear soul sight, right? And there was a play on words that the year 2020 and soul sight having clarity and clear vision, right? That we were summoned all of last year to get in alignment with clear soul sight and get really comfortable with seeing more and more clearly. And how do we keep and maintain that awareness and that future pull to continue to stay in the present moment awareness, and being willing to see clearly things that we haven't wanted to see. And I also felt come into my awareness, maybe that's the duality game always playing itself. We're supposed to be really clear and be willing to step up in this great awakening process. But then I felt the story that I don't know too well, but I know the story of Lot from the Bible. And there's the story where I think it's they were living in Sodom and Gomorrah. Maybe you guys, one of you guys knows the story a little bit more, but that was like a city of destruction. You know, a lot of evil and darkness had befallen that city, and they got guidance. They were supposed to flee the city, right? They were supposed to leave and not look back. And they do leave. They make that decision to leave. And Lot and his wife, I don't think she's ever named. I don't know what her name is, but Lot and Lot's wife, they leave, and she turns and looks back, right, against the guidance that was given. And supposedly she's turned into a pillar of salt. right? And what that metaphor is, I don't know if Paul, you might want to talk about that, or we can talk about anything related to these topics that I've mentioned today. But it's interesting how we're summoned, many spiritual warriors right now, people who are aware of these changes, and we're feeling so much energy all around us and even in our own lives. And we're summoned to have this clear soul sight and be the ones who are awake and aware at a time that sometimes it's hard to be awake and aware. And at the same time, as we're looking in and we're willing to see the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth, there's also this story that came in that just to not be looking backwards at what was and be looking forwards at where we're going and navigating, that fine line in between those things, I think can be an interesting journey for people who are on the spiritual path right now. So I'm curious, does anybody want to speak to any of those things?
Okay, I can speak.
Please.
Okay. Well, I completely agree, and I think we've brought this up before on a number of occasions in different ways. But there's what's being done right now is that we're being fed a future timeline that doesn't exist. It's only a past timeline, and so what plays upon our fears are like it's like they're taking something and they're superimposing these ideas and their thoughts upon a future timeline. And these are just reruns of previous timelines. So, we just watch the media, 99.5% of all of the stories that are being told about the future timelines or the future scenarios are apocalyptic in the sense of they're fearful and they're frightening. So there's nobody that's talking about a bright future, not within that realm. So that's part of a conditioning process or a mind control process. And somebody in one of these meetings, they were talking about how they have us facing backwards. And so we're looking at, instead of facing forward and moving forward, they have us looking at the past. So all of these terrible things, that genocides and world destruction and all of these other things, that's what we're being told is the future. But that isn't necessarily the future unless we buy into the fear and the conditioning and the mind control to accept that as a false reality, because that's not what our destiny or ordained reality can be. It can be something far greater than that. So I can't remember who was talking about, but she said it was just simply all you had to do was turn around and face. It might have been Sharon. Turn around and face forward to see a completely different future. There was a time when I grew up and when Nancy grew up, and probably when all you guys grew up, where the future looked bright, it looked promising, and it just doesn't look like that now. But I think that's the meaning, I think, of Lot's wife, or that's at least one of the ways to interpret Lot's wife, is she couldn't turn face forward, and they were told in that story that you don't look back. Whatever you do, don't look back. But she couldn't resist, and so she turned around and looked back. And so I think that's the metaphor. Is that you cannot hold on to, or you cannot pine away or look back at what was done in the past, because none of it's going to work.
I also think, if you really look at the metaphor, why was it Lot's wife and not Lot? What is the importance in that, right? And so, this is just, I'm thinking of this as I'm listening to us talk about it. What does the woman, the wife, stand for? What does she represent? And so if it's what she represents, which is maybe, nurturing, the stereotypical caretaker, and if that's what you're looking back at and not having a good outcome, maybe it's opening up the idea that we need to embrace a different way of nurturing, because Lot himself was fine with looking forward. And that's, I think, tends to be a more masculine approach anyhow. The not necessarily the warrior, but the provider, the one who's breaking the path, right? He's creating the path for everybody to follow. And yet it was the woman that looked back. And so, in my mind, maybe we're being asked to think of nurturing energy moving forward in a new way.
It's really powerful. I think when I looked up the energy of the 8-8 Lionsgate, I feel like a few people were talking about new creation. I guess is it a new, do you guys know, is the 8-8 Lionsgate, some people were talking about, like, was that like signifying the new year somehow, that there's significance to the Lionsgate somehow? No. Okay. Somehow I was interpreting it that way, but there was definitely a theme.
It may have been, it was the most important, I think, celebrated, holiday or celebration in the Egyptian world was that portal opening, and that starts around the 28th of the month, and it goes to about the 12th of August.
Oh wow! So okay, there's a whole window to that, and there's
a whole
window, and I was just gonna say there was this theme of creation, and I think very powerful creation. And it's interesting when we think about the woman and the wife's, Lot's wife, and her role and why it was her. I do think is all of us, but the divine feminine in all of us is being called to create in this new way, or be very conscious of our creation, right? And nurturing and new life, right? And this birthing of new projects, new insights, new ways of being. And, with a lot of power comes a lot of responsibility. And I think God, we're moving into this time of like starting to realize more of our divine power, more of our power as a people, right? The power is in we, the people. This consciousness is coming back to a lot of people. You see the protests for, staying somewhat apolitical, I suppose, but, you see people rising up and saying no, right? You're seeing what they want to choose and not what their leaders are trying to, force upon them or require or demand in protocols and things. And so you have the people speaking and creating in these new ways. And it is an interesting concept of like thinking about that, looking forward, and also creating in new ways and having this awareness. And I think that's a very poignant story for our times, something that had been in my awareness. And, I think as a child, as I was growing up, when I heard that story of Lot and his wife, and I as a kid, I think I was spooked by that. Who doesn't want to like peek back at something and all of a sudden, poof, like you're a whole pile of salt now, right? It was very illustrative in a lot of ways. And as a sensitive kid, I felt that energetically. And I think we are here to learn from our past, but also pay attention, like what you're saying, Paul, too, about the distortions in our present, that they keep trying to forecast for us this bleak future, that there is no creative life force, that the new life creation is over. And it's almost like a mechanical creation, or pushing us more towards in the direction of AI or things like that, where the soul of who we are as living sentient beings is being crushed out of our perceptions. And they keep showing us these shows where it just gets grimmer and grimmer and grimmer. And we're not wired that way, though. I mean, when we turn off the TV and we don't give those things that power, and we get outside of nature, and I love how Paul and Nancy are outside with nature all around you, right? Because when we do, we do take time in our day to step away from our devices, and we get into what's real. That nature's where it's real, right? Nature is where it's real. And we can see that these trees, no matter what the forecasts are about, from US governments about COVID and pandemics and all these things, the trees are going to keep reaching for the light. Like that news and that information doesn't change what they're guided to do and to be. They're always oriented to receive the heavens rains, right? To get the nourishment they need and to grow and be the biggest, best, most awesome tree they can be. We can take some, guidance, and we can be empowered when we look at those messages versus what they keep trying to signal to us through the shows. That I think there are agendas behind a lot of that. And there is a lot of mind control going on. I have a background in psychology. I don't know, whether it's just whether you guys have that or just a passion project. I know, Paul, you talk about a lot about young and you have a lot of deeper understandings, but, you know, we're very influenceable human beings, right? And we are sentient beings. So when they can either, you know, get our attention through fear, that can facilitate their programming and mind control. But if we step outside of the box and we get outside into what is God's divine design, we start to see mirrored in that reflection. We are designed to expand. We are designed to keep growing. I think this clear soul sight concept is all about really paying attention to what we're giving our attention to, right? And are we looking, you know, through the windshield, or are we looking in the rearview mirror? And we can maintain a kind of quantum awareness or even just situational awareness, knowing what we've come from, but we don't have to always look back deep and dissect it, right? To forecast that as our future. We can know that it happened, and we can awaken to the truth of some things that even maybe any of us on this call don't know that happened in the darkness that's manifested. But it doesn't have to define our future. And I think we're learning how to vibrationally be a container of all of that all at the same time and create this new path forward. It's a lot what we're going through. It is a lot. Renee, yeah.
It is a lot. And I think even at the beginning of the pandemic and everything, with people locked down in their homes and stuff, and their own daily lives at work or wherever they were, not as much of a distraction, it kind of forced everybody to go inside and start seeing things that maybe they didn't have the time to look at. And then as things have evolved and things have gotten a little crazier and a little more control, and the disinformation, I think it's important. I'm sorry if I'm distracted. There's a bunny rabbit in my yard. I've never seen, because there's fences and stuff. I don't know how he got in. So that's why I saw something out of the corner of my eye. Sorry. You know, I think that by design, by divine design, we're being forced to find that connection, that infinite divine connection to God. Because when the external is confusing you, you know, friends, neighbors, family, if there's all kinds of things going on for everybody, that you're forced to go inside and find that connection and ask for help from. And I think that's by design, because it's easy to lean on everybody else. I know I have, you know, what do you think? What do you think? But I think to become sovereign, you need to know and find that connection of God, that it's working through your heart, through finding ways to trust and ways to live in that connection that maybe we were just like maybe flirting with before. Oh yeah, blah, 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 blah. But for me, it's like, it's my go-to place is my heart. And I call out to God and say, help me, Rhonda, all the time, you know, like, I don't know if this is true, what's going on, and all this stuff. And so I find comfort in knowing that the force of the universe, the God of the universe, you can go inside and find in your heart and find that guidance in whatever, how small or how big that's going on in your life. And then you hear stuff like from Paul and other people that have a greater understanding of the exterior forces, you know, like the planets and all that stuff, and what's going on our planet with governments and everything else. So it's quite a ride right now for people. And, you know, it's true that we do not know all of what's going on. And it's kind of an uncomfortable position to be in, because we want to know the truth, seek the truth, and live the truth. So I'm grateful for that connection, and it's growing in me too.
It is growing. I think there is something that happens inside people who accept that they are on a spiritual path, right, at this time. And there is this acceptance of an allowing at a deeper level to let this energy move through. there's something that happens too, I find in the journey, that I don't necessarily need to understand all of it, but I do have to allow the energy to move. Right. And so all the times that we've tried to block the knowing of things that are uncomfortable, that we don't want to know, we've got to open this channel. We've got to open up our chakras and become more of that conduit, that vessel to a holy purpose. And a lot of people, because we've been in such survival mode for so long and for so many lifetimes, just trying to survive in a realm like this, that we've kind of blocked up or locked down our chakras, and we don't let things flow through because we haven't wanted to know. We've needed to like turn the faucet off of that much information. And then you see what's coming through on the planet is these floods are saying the emotions that have been bottlenecked and bottled up and blocked out for so long at a collective level, they have to pour out now. So there's no, that concept of there's no rug to stuff anything in. There's no chakra system that can contain this level of energy anymore. And what we haven't been willing to manifest in our own lives, in our own consciousness and awareness, I think we're manifesting it through the waters of the planet, which, if water represents emotion, right? The emotions are just surging forward. And there's a lot of repressed and unexpressed pain that's just pouring out. And I think if we can allow ourselves to like let that run its course, and hopefully, and pray for people to have safety, right? Because none of us know where these floods are necessarily going to, begin happening. There's this faith in God too, of like that God is leading all beings, wherever we live, whatever the experiences are. But I love those reflections that you gave, Renee, and all that we're sharing here today, because there is also some kind of, we get more comfortable with allowing what needs to move through us, right? Del Sol, would you like to speak a little bit to some of this?
Yes. The water cycle is evident and is prominent here in Gaia right now. The aspect of looking back is there's a lot of people when this pandemic started, was waiting for it to be over so they can go back to the way things were. You can never go back. And you have to understand that. And that's the emotions that we're dealing with right now. The floods, it is a cleansing. It is a way as far as to move forward, that we're not going to move backwards. Move forward in a way that our heart centers are open, and they're opening to the divine birthright that we know on the inside, that is activating us on a deeper, soulful level of the most inner knowing connection to oneness. So this moving forward, the balance of the masculine along with the feminine, because the feminine was gone and was put down. So now the feminine is rising, and the eternal waters are flowing, and is bringing truth, and is bringing emotional balance to everywhere on this planet. The beings here that are stationed around this planet in the grid, are allowing those energies to filter and to flow and to come through and serve as an activation portal within themselves, within Gaia, to allow the flow of the divine and the waters to flow. The waters will flow wherever it needs to. You cannot stop the water. Water will go wherever it wants to go and wherever it needs to go. So that's what's happening right now. And right now, we're just being a witness to the divine plan. It is moving as scheduled.
Wow. Wow. That was beautiful, Del Sol. And I know like you're such a good messenger for the water. Del Sol, for our audience, I don't know if people have heard, but we did a couple of podcasts where he speaks light language. So you know all about letting that flow, right? Just letting the light to flow, letting the language flow, and allowing, this energy of like water, like water, letting things flow on through and not stopping things and trying to block them up. I think that's what also the symbology of just the energy of revelations, right? I think letting this come to the surface, letting things flow out for the healing that is needed. And you're a beautiful messenger of that water, being born in an island town, right? You're growing up on an island,
the
right?
waters, the eternal waters are flowing. And when it flows, it brings us back and opens us up for a voice, connection to truth and wholeness.
Yes. And also what you said, Del Sol, there, I think a lot of people, when the pandemic hit and there has been this, I just want to get back to normal. I want to go back. I want to go back. I want to go back. It's like, not like you can go recollect the water. You know what I mean? It just like falls through your fingers. It's something that you can't hold on to. It's like time. You can't hold on to time either. Right. And I think we're in training. I mean, I think God is teaching us all what it's like to live in the feminine flow again. And we've been so long without the voice and the awareness and the consciousness of the divine feminine. We've been so masculine for so long in this realm trying to survive. You know, we have to learn how to reacclimate to what it's like having that feminine energy flowing in our lives, flowing in our consciousness. And part of the feminine is that allowing, right? And allowing is an energy like the water. It is a flow. And we're having to, you know, reacclimate and get comfortable with that again. And at the same time, what's flooding in and returning to us is our power, right? Our gifts, our soul skills. It's the things we came to be. It's our presence. And maybe we want to talk a little bit about that in the second half of our podcast today, is a little more maybe about the Lion's Gate, a little bit more about the ways that we allow creative flow in our lives. How are we out picturing? How are we visioning, you know, the life that we want to be our future, that we're calling in now, even as things are kind of uncertain and overwhelming on some days. But how are we finding that creativity, and I guess turning, you know, converting or alchemizing any fear or discomfort into faith and creativity, right? Yeah. Does anyone want to speak to that? Do you want to talk about that, Paul? Anything?
Yeah. So, and just to add to what you were saying, this is a spiritual exercise, and we're being schooled regarding a greater awareness or insight to our spiritual connection. And one of the things that it's difficult for people to get a grip on, but they have to start understanding this, is that everything that keeps you held fast to the past is related to your perception of time. And so everything that we've known regarding existence within this incarnation and sequential pre-incarnations was that time flows in a linear fashion. Well, we should at some point understand that we came here to do amazing things. And if you studied your astrology, you would understand that there are all of these potentials that exist within you that will manifest. So that's a promise. That's like a, what do they call that? It's something that cannot be changed if you follow the will of your higher self. So it's like it's just like a standard. It's like the tapestry or the fabric of what you're living with. So if you focus on linear time, everything is like it has consequences. Everything is like a past, a present, and a future. When you start to understand that, you know, I have all of these great potentials that lay ahead of me, and I came here to fulfill those potentials. I don't know how I'm going to fulfill those potentials, but they exist within my future, because that's the contract that I had before I was born, to fulfill those potentials. So if a person comes to that realization and knows that those things are extremely truthful, then there's nothing that an external source that could throw at you that's going to dissuade you from understanding that that's my path. So all of those other things that they're trying to throw at us are inconsequential. They're lies, they're deceptions. And so instead of trying to focus on past, present, future, I just kind of focus on the present, because of that, because tomorrow will take care of itself in that mindset. Right? I know what I'm bound to do. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I do know that there was a really interesting movie. I'm trying to think of the name. It's called The Black Robe. It's a beautiful film. and it was made maybe about 15 years ago, 20 years ago. No, I think that's about as old as it was. And it was about Jesuit priests that in the 1600s in Quebec, and they were kind of like embroiled in these Indian wars and these skirmishes and all these other things. And there's good people and there's bad people in the movie, and so it was a very beautiful scene where one of these missionaries are being led to safety by this very honorable man who was the chief of his tribe. And it was really harrowing, and all of these dangers existed. And they get to a certain point within this travel, and he sees the picture as it starts to manifest, and he realizes that it was part of his dream, that he had been dreaming of this place for a long time. And he came to realize that this was the place where he would die. And he was perfectly calm with that, because he was going to go down in battle, and he was going to save his family and these other people, trying to get them to safety. But he lamented about it, and he said, boy, I really wish I had known that this was my death dream, because I would have been a far more noble and braver man if I knew that. So we should start to feel those energies within our soul, because there is a point where we'll exit this world, but not until we've accomplished the tasks that we're here to accomplish. So we should live without fear, because deep inside, you know that you have these tasks and these experiences that you will have. And you know what? I'm not going to die of fear, or whatever the heck the globalists decide to conjure up to tell me that I'm going to die from that. And the future that I'm looking at isn't going to be like anything that I'm looking on in these dystopian views that we see in these alleged science fiction stories that they're spinning. None of these things are going to happen to a person who knows this. They're unshakable. You can't. They will never deviate from the path that they're destined to walk. And so I think that through this process of awakening, we start becoming aware of our true potentials, and we start to help to work within the environment itself and within others to help manifest those potentials. And I think that so for me, time is a distortion and an illusion. Because really there is only one time. It's the now. And that's what we have to focus on. We have to focus on, because tomorrow will take care of itself. Just take care of today and just live without fear. And I think that's the way that we need to move forward.
Well, that was so eloquently said, Paul. It really, whenever you share, it really speaks, the stories, the way you illustrate what and people can really feel. It's like a symbolic language. We feel it on different levels. And time is an illusion, and yet fear wants to fill. If the globalists or whoever the nefarious individuals in this particular realm and reality have their way, they keep us in perpetual fear and all the timelines they want us to know about. Right? You were fearful in the past, you're fearful now, and we're going to certainly make sure that you're fearful in the future. So what's the weather forecast according to them is fear. And what's interesting, Renee, is what you saw. The animal that hopped into your experience on this call was a rabbit. And I wrote a book. One of the books in my 8 illustrated stories is called The Habit of Rabbits. And I had received this kind of a channeled message, something about fear, before I wrote that book, but it kind of wove itself into that story. And the habit of rabbits is of being fear, right? And here this fear comes into our podcast this morning, right? To show us there is nothing to fear but fear itself, right? And I bet even rabbits don't want to be known as being fearful. I think they're tired of the stigma that they get, assigned to with their animal medicine. And they do many other things, right? I'm sure there's many other qualities to the rabbit that we need to maybe look up. All of us can look up that information, because it seemed to come into all of our experience. There are no accidents how, and you said you don't see rabbits in your backyard. Like it actually got your attention because you don't normally see that. So, spirit's already working its magic into this, and you can look at that rabbit and we can extract the blessing of all the good things that rabbit's trying to tell us today. And also being aware that fear can be a transient thing. It can just hop on through, you see it, and it keeps going, right, in the flow of life. But some people see that bunny hopping and they stop and they invite it in and they have lunch with it. And then they tell the story about it. And then they tell their friends about it. And they go to work and they tell the whole story about how fear came into their experience. And this is the monster that it looked like. And then Renee, you do such a good job of this. And when you tell this and you talk about it, and then they tell all their friends about it, and their friends tell the story about, oh my gosh, it's like the easiest way to ripple fear into the collective's reality. But we can also say, oh, look, that's what the rabbit's hopping through. It's offering us an invitation to fear, but it's also offering us other perceptions. And we get to choose what path in the road we're going to take today. And maybe we just appreciate the rabbit for its gifts and just how amazing nature is and how God's timing, that's the true timing, is God's timing. Right? Whatever God's timing is, the now is something that's meant to be happening in our experience to help us grow. And I think that is how we maintain that clear soul sight, that like present moment awareness, while we also feel the past behind us that is trying to rise up on our shores, it's trying to come into our consciousness all the time. And as you practice this more and more, and you see the rabbits as metaphor in your life experience, you see the fear in those invitations. We get better and better at feeling that fear hopping into our experience, trying to come into our awareness, maintaining clear soul sight. We don't shut down our sight when we see that and feel that. We stay aware. We keep our eyes open, right? And we focus our attention on where we want to be giving our creative life force. And something that Paul and I talked about in a recent podcast that I haven't posted yet, but you talked all about that life force, that sexual energy, right? The libido that is our sovereignty. It's in our second chakra, especially, right? That's a big part of where we feel that energy inside us and where we unleash that. Maybe all these floods are designed to help us open up that wealth of, creative life force that we have. It's also designed to do that. It's when we fall from fear into faith and we access our creative life force. Renee, you saw the bunny hopping and then you turned your attention back to the podcast, right? You got the message was delivered, right? We all noted it. Everybody experienced it simultaneously in the present moment. And we're focused here on what do we want to be creating? What do we want to be creating as our message for humanity, whoever tunes into these messages, right? So it's amazing. It's amazing when we wake up, like I think you even used the word magical too, Del Sol. There's a magic that starts to run its course in your life, like what you're talking about, Paul, with your astrology and people's astrology. And there's all these distractions. But if you keep listening to what is yours to do, right, the magic of your own life will continue to lead you, and tomorrow will take care of itself. There is something so exquisite when I learned more and more how to do that and be that all the time, and wasn't trying to plan or control or I don't know, whatever else that I was doing in more my human self before I awakened to some of these concepts. Yeah, there's a powerful life force that is trying to unlock inside all of us. And I think that 8/8 Lion's Gate wants to come through that life force energy and empower us to create and take our sovereignty and do whatever that means for each of us. For some people, that would be standing in a protest with thousands or millions of other people to say, I do not consent and I do not choose this as my reality anymore. Some people are going to choose to stand up and create in that way and co-create with lots of others that message, right? Others of us do other things, right? Somebody might be called to tend their garden and go out and spend time with the rabbits. And I have lots of deer that visit my yard and all kinds of wildlife, right? That we might choose to create that way. There's so many ways we can bring our presence to the things that we are so powerful to manifest in this world. And maybe as we round some of this out today, I don't know if you guys want to speak to that. Is we've touched on this before, but it's always good to hear it again. Oh, Del Sol.
What Paul was saying, and the rabbit came out. When the rabbit came out, I got the note that when Paul was speaking, that the rabbit steps out into the light ever so often. And when it does, everyone takes notice. So when Paul is speaking, it reminds us that we have to step into our authenticity, not knowing what tomorrow may bring. But when we do, we're aligned on that path, that divine path that puts us exactly where we need to be. We don't know how we're going to do what we need to do, but we are going to do it. And when we're in that path, it puts us in the divine flow of things, and everything will align for us, by us, around others. And synchronicity, it's like laying the foundation of the path for what's to come. And the Lion's Gate portal that's opening up now, when we are stepping, I see a lot of people stepping into their inner truth and their inner knowing, and their voice is just resonating throughout, and it's creating a vibration that has not been felt in eons, and it's bringing about change, and it's ushering the true authentic voice of the divine. And that rabbit serves us as a reminder that we have to step out into the light, and we have to be noticed. We have to take the step and honor that truth within ourselves and allow the divine to take control. When we merge with our higher selves knows, and they will align everything that we know that we need multidimensionally, and pull in on forces on others, and everyone will align for that path.
Makes sense.
You want to say?
No, go ahead.
Well, no, so the Lion's Gate portal itself. Do you want to say something?
No, because what I will say will probably feed into what you say. So you can
all right.
first.
Well, the Lion's Gate portal, on 8/8, we looked at this, and it didn't look like there was a whole lot of stuff going on. And then when you looked at it very closely, there was a yod that emerges, which is very important, because that's this narrow triangle, and they call it the finger of God. So if you find one of those, look at it and look to see where it's pointing. So I think Nancy's been feeling this energy. Maybe she can comment a little bit on this when I'm done. But the finger of God is pointing to the moon, which is in Leo, and it's also going to be in conjunction with Mercury. So why is this important? Well, the base of the yod is one end is connected to Pluto, which I think is in Aquarius, or I think is Aquarius, and then the other base is connected to Neptune and Athena, and that is in Pisces. So, I mean, what does it all mean, right? And so what it means is that it's pointing to it brings up a mythology that, and I don't want to go into all the details of this because it'll bore you guys to death probably, but the moon represents the human soul. And when Mercury is present, which is very interesting, and Pluto is present, it suggests the soul in captivity. And so how, and this brings us to a story about Persephone. And Persephone was a goddess who was coveted by Pluto, or Hades, and was brought in, abducted into hell, and had to live in that, and was stuck there, you know. And it was only through divine intervention that she was able to get out of that situation, but only temporarily, meaning that she has to keep going back to it. So what does it mean? Well, the way that she got out was with Mercury. Mercury had to come into Hades, and he had to negotiate for her to take her out of Hades, but she had to go back. And so to me, this suggests the human soul that is imprisoned within the astral plane, which is where we go every single night when we go to sleep. And so Persephone was considered the wife of Hades, which was the consort of Hades, or the priestess, or the queen of the underworld. And so we have this darkness and this life that we live. It kind of goes back to the libido issues. And it looks like at that portal, when it opens up, it looks like there's going to be more light that's going to be cast into that. There's going to be more clarity that's going to be opening up towards the dark elements of who we are. This theme keeps playing out over and over and over again. But there's going to be some divine or spiritual enlightenment or intervention in the form of Mercury or Hermes that's going to give us greater levels of insight to this. But you know, it's like surfing, you know, and I'm not very good at that. But if you have to ride this wave, otherwise the wave's going to wipe you out. So, you know, if you're prepared to ride the wave, then you know you're going to get a lot more insight as to what's going on through the Lion's Gate. And if you're not prepared for the wave, you're going to get wiped out. And the other interesting part about it was Neptune and Athena, and that in itself, I don't go into all the details of that, but that suggests that you're going to have a choice between a positive path or a negative path, a path of violence or a path of war or path of the same old stuff, or you're going to have a path to become a peacemaker, a person that's going to bring peace and harmony back into the world. So, sorry.
No.
Go ahead.
No. I was just going to add, not to dwell on the past, but we had a full moon on Friday. And so even though it's in the past, a full moon kind of sets the energy for everything coming up until the next one. So I think if we look at what happened Friday, and I'll come back to that in a minute, but it's not so much that the wave will crash if we don't ride it. There'll be another wave, right? And I don't surf, but my guess is sometimes there's this optimal wave and you can wait for the next one, but it might not get you enough to get up on your board, right? And so that's sort of what happened Friday, I think, is that wave is building to prepare you for the Lion's Gate. And so this is a great time because the full moon we had on Friday was at 1 degree Aquarius, which is exactly the same point that we had the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction back in December. I believe it was the 21st. And so this full moon that we had on Friday is kind of a way to re-energize your path to help manifest whatever that energy from December 21st initiated. And Del Sol, I was going to keep quiet about this because I wanted to make sure it was relevant. I don't just want to speak. But Del Sol, you spoke about, and I'm not one to remember the detail of the exact words, but your words were speaking to me and I was hearing, putting your ego out there, right? And so in my mind, the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in December really kind of helped prepare the opportunity to bust up your conception of time, right? So if Saturn is the time lord and Jupiter explodes it, it expands it. So that was really an opportunity to change your awareness of time, to redefine how we perceive time. And then with this full moon coming back at 1st degree Aquarius, the full moon, the sun is in Leo and the moon was in Aquarius, so they're exact opposite. And what that Leo Aquarius energy defines for me is, think about, you know, Leo is really your ego, who you are, who you're putting out to the world, what face that is you're going to present. And Aquarius is, and where does that ego fit in with your view of how you're going to fit into humanity, right? And so we're really looking, this energy is opening up right before the Lion's Gate portal, that idea of who do you want to be and what is your place in where humanity is going. And so that's why this is like, if you're open to the energy and you're waking up, this is a great wave to ride. And there'll be more waves, but this is the one that's going to get you up.
Yeah, we've been following that too. And one of Nancy's been, I think, connecting very closely to is the moon cycles and how you got the new moon and then you have your full moon, and that connects to the nodes, but I don't want to get into much of that. But you can just think about it as planting and reaping. So you reap what you sow. And so this is a point where we're going to reap. I think we've sown already, you know, many times. And now this is the point where we should reap what we've created, you know, what are the full potential of who we are, or at least move into that direction.
there's always another chance. There's another new moon August 9th and a full moon August 28th.
Yeah.
And so it will still be in Leo, or the new moon will, right? And so you might be able to ride a little bit of the second wave, right? Because it's still going to be in the negative portion. But really, this is setting the stage for anything you want to do in the next couple of weeks.
This is the cosmic surfboard that we have right now.
Right.
And we're ready to go. I know a lot of people are riding this wave right now, and it is beautiful.
It is. And having a conscious awareness and the language that it's coming, into our consciousness in this conversation. And I think many people, there's a lot of people speaking about the astrology and allowing ourselves to tune in and live at this level. It's when the magic, it's when the manifesting, it's the reaping, but you're the conscious creator in the midst of all that who planted the seeds in the first place. Right. And I wanted to also say something to what you said, Nancy, when you talk about that. Was it the Leo and Aquarius across from each other, as though the two that were across? And you have Leo, which is the fire, right? Which is a sun sign anyway. And you have then the element of water. And so, do elements no? Paul?
Air.
Aquarius is actually air.
Aquarius,
That's
isn't that
confusing.
weird? That is confusing.
Think of it as
It looks
ether.
like waves, but yeah.
I know.
Okay, so it's air, huh? That's interesting.
You know what? So this is what I would say about Aquarius. We think of water yes, we have water with some more emotionality, but water's analogous to spirit. So water actually is analogous to spirit or ether. So in ether, it has both qualities: water, a liquid, and a gas. So it's spiritual waters. Think about water. You can't destroy water. Water is a carrier for consciousness. Water is a carrier for an intention. Water is the system to purify things. In fact, we will just start learning about this. Water carries all kinds of energies. And so it really is on this plane of consciousness. It's really kind of like analogous to spirit. It's really the closest thing that we have to spirit is water.
That Aquarian energy, how you're going to see your role in humanity. The Aquarian energy is really the renegade. It's the rebel. It allows you to redefine it. It's like time, the opportunity to, when you don't fit in, you tend to stay at the back of the room or not speak up. And this is the time for you to be happy that you don't fit in and to speak up anyhow. Right? Be okay with it. Be bold, and let your individuality shine, really. And the whole Leo thing is also a very creative force. So, everything from, Friday night, all that energy coming in is very creational, very creative anyhow, very playful, and yet allowing you space to be your true self, even when you don't fit in.
That's a powerful message for a lot of people who would be tuning into this particular podcast, right? Because I think a lot of people who would be listening might, certainly resonate with that, what you just described. And speaking our truth and being bold, right? All these things are kind of dovetailing and converging into that wave that we're all going to be on, right? We're all going to be surfing it in some way in these coming days, in these coming weeks. But it sounds like it's a very potent time. It's a very pregnant time. It's a very life force creation time. So it's exciting. I find this to be a very exciting time, and living in the mystery and the magic, elevates our lives to a whole other level. And I think there is this feminine energy of allowing ourselves to be what we are, right? Instead of always necessarily identifying with the person who doesn't fit in or the person who sees things differently. Obviously there's a little bit of a disempowerment when we indulge those and we allow that to be part of our identity. But if we allow ourselves to know that we are these powerful creator beings, then we can ride the wave with a different sense of purposefulness, I think, and access more of the magic that is available to us. And in a way, we've been talking about time too, But this is our time. This is the time for people who are kind of those outliers, right? Who see bigger picture visions, right? Who want to play in a bigger playground or a bigger sandbox. And other people are trying to say, you can't do these things, right? You know, and want to limit our truth or put us back into a box of perception that makes everybody else around us feel safer. Renee.
Yeah, I liked what Nancy was saying about not fitting in. And there's been a lot of things come up in the last year about vaccine or no vaccine, and the whole, how do you identify your gender, and what mask or no mask when the masks went away. And so I think that those kinds of things are forcing us to go inside and look and see in a more clear way, because we're not distracted how we were before in our regular lives. That it's important to get real clear on where you stand with yourself. Mm-hmm. And then that's one thing. And then taking that stand with you and being that, and irregardless of what other people think, you know. And I think that's by divine design also, because I think we're all used to, okay, well, it doesn't matter if you don't want to do it, I won't do it, or, you know, to really be yourself and to honor yourself, because that's so important, because we are made by God, and I'm me and you're you, and each of us is a gift to the rest of humanity, whatever that is. And so if you want to hide, if you're going to hide your light, you're not giving the gift of you to yourself as well as to the rest of humanity.
Exactly what you just described when you were saying that, Renee, so beautifully, because it is, we all feel these things deeply, all of us in our own lives. And those of us especially that identify as sensitives or empaths or intuitives, we feel this. And when you feel different, or sometimes in our sensitivity, some of us have allowed ourselves to shrink and be smaller, right, than we naturally and organically are divinely designed meant to be. But I remembered, I think I've quoted a Marie Forleo. She created a kind of heart-centered business school. It's called the B School. She talks about that the world needs that unique gift that only you have. And when you're hiding from yourself, you can't really express the gifts that you have that are meant to activate whoever it is that you come in contact with, whether you go out, you leave your house every day and you work and you interact with employees and coworkers and clients and customers. We are this force for good in the world. And I think this is our time to speak more of our truth, which means embrace our gifts, embrace our talents. And there will be those people who are saying, your truth scares me, right? Your expansive nature is intimidating, right? I don't like the changes I notice in you. You're accessing more power, your sovereignty than I've ever seen that you ever express. And people feel more comfortable when we stay in the boxes that allow them to confirm the version of us that they want to have in their life. And we're not designed for boxes, right? We really aren't. And this is also, to me, part of that Lionsgate energy and the floodwaters of emotion and all that repression of energy. To me, I think all that we're talking about today, those floodwaters and the Lionsgate, is calling us not to repression, but expression, and full on expression, right? At a time where a lot of the world is overwhelmed, and just trying to manage their boxes is overwhelming. And when your truth comes into their box, it shatters the box. And that can be really uncomfortable.
We're fluid. We're not like static and staying the same. We're moving. We're doing this and growing and experiencing and feeling and looking at. And so we're not because we're infinite beings and we're moving how we move. So right. It's not rigid. You can't put a label on somebody. That's how you are, and you'll always be that way.
There's no more standing back and allowing things to just take place. We have to step to the forefront and be seen as the rapid. And that is our time to do that, regardless of what others may think. If we come off as a threat, hey, you know too much. You should know what you know, but that's okay. That's your box. Let you deal with that box. I have no box. I'm here to shine, regardless of what others say. And this wave that we're riding, it is gonna usher in a lot of people coming to the forefront.
So beautifully said.
What did you say, Del Sol? People coming
to the forefront.
Oh, to the
stepping into their authenticity.
I wonder, I'm curious, like in sacred texts, like how many times light is referenced, right? But you know, it's woven in there pretty thoroughly. And we are here to shine. And sometimes when we shine brighter, it is intimidating to other people. And that's something else that we're also going to, I think, as we ride these waves, we're giving ourselves permission that me shining bright, you know, doesn't need to diminish your light or influence you if you don't want to shine bright, right? Other people can say, I like my dimmer, right? I like my dimmer switch and I'm keeping it way down. That's okay, because they may be letting some waves pass, like you said, Nancy. Maybe this isn't their wave. Maybe there's another wave in September, October that they're going to take, right? Or they'll catch the wave in January. Maybe 2022 is their year. We all catch our waves when it's right for us, right? And I would imagine, I'm not a surfer either. I think Del Sol, you're a surfer, right? You've surfed.
I don't surf, but I do ride the waves.
Me too. I love that.
We can all feel that feeling. And I'm sure if there are like, say, 10 surfers lined up and they're all out there in the water, they're not all going to take the same wave, right? They're each going to they're going to let ones pass and they're going to know by instinct, by intuition, this one's for me, right? And that's what we're listening for. We're listening for those waves that are ours to take. And that's the moment to be bold. I don't think if you hesitate as a surfer, I guess you miss the wave, or it may crash down on you, whatever happens. But, you know, I think if you're really going to take it and ride it well, you've got to, you know, make the commitment and say, this one's mine.
I just got a beautiful analogy. We're all in the same water, but we're riding our own waves.
Right. Exactly.
When we ride that wave, the light that we emit activates those who are in their box, who later will take their own wave when the time comes.
Right.
Nice.
And I think I love what you just said there, Del Sol, exactly. And when we give ourselves permission to shine bright and to shine the light that we are and take the waves that are meant for us, and also model that there are some waves that we don't take. When we live who we are and we give ourselves permission to be that unapologetically, when we are bold, that's what boldness to me, anyway, that's like a quantum boldness, that we are who we are, right? And one of my cats who passed in the last year, but that was his message, like to the bitter end, you know, be who you are and don't apologize, right? And obviously people listening, that doesn't mean like any kind of violence towards another person, but I'm talking about giving yourself permission to be the expression that you are, as long as it's not negatively impacting in some kind of violent criminal way somebody else. We're talking about the spiritual essence of embodying the bigness, the quantum nature, the infinite nature that we are. And our playing small doesn't help anybody else become bigger either, right? So we're learning what this means. And for many lifetimes, we've gotten really good at being small. Even if it was really uncomfortable, I think there are many lifetimes to be safe. A lot of us have played it small. This lifetime hasn't been a lifetime to play it small. I think many of us on the call feel that, right? I can't think of a time where I had the small path or I had the bigger path. I think somehow my steering wheel always went to the bigger path, right? I think I'm just naturally attracted to expansion. Renee, please.
You know, and in defense of people who feel differently than we feel and stuff. You know what? We've been on this wave for a long time, and I have a lot of compassion for people that, you know, maybe don't have the big picture. There's a certain amount of people that do have the big picture, and thank God for that. And we're all in this together. And so I do have a lot of compassion for humanity, and regardless of what they are standing up for and stuff, because in the end, it's all going to be made known that we are one, and we're one family of man. And so this just happens to be what it looks like right now, because I do hold the tall vision of unity consciousness and walking with God in harmony with our brothers and sisters, and having that joy and walking out of the darkness that we've been in. And so, you know, yeah, I've had pain in my life, but I know that it's serving me and serving those around me, because God is in charge and orchestrating this, and the force of God is orchestrating this beautiful healing that we're going through, that we're going from darkness to light. And so I have to go back to that a lot when I don't understand, and when I don't have the correct words or feelings or direction. You know, I lean on that infinite source inside of me to just, you know, back off for a while and be quiet until I can get a sense of where I'm being led, because it's confusing and it's quite a ride right now. We're all on that cosmic wave, Del Sol. And everybody's on it, whether they know it or not. And you can say, well, excuse me, I'm not riding the wave. Too late, honey.
You're in the water.
You're on the wave, baby. You
right?
know, you cannot know it, but, and thank God, because we're leaving a place where we couldn't really be ourselves, where we were hiding behind things, and we were worried about what people think, and doing all those things because we feel like we had to protect ourselves, or it wasn't safe to be who we are. And so we're moving out of that. And so I say, bring it, bring the waves, even though I might be going.
Well, and I think we're learning, those of us on the crest of these waves, whether we're unconscious about it or conscious, this is also surfing to align more fully and completely and holistically with source, right? And so where a lot of our lives in a 3D matrix or this other, you know, lower earth experience has been about trying to find a way to fit in, even if you don't feel like you belong. Everyone belongs with source, right? Everyone belongs with God. And I think we're on our way to find and remember that alignment. And this whole journey, when some people are like, what are they talking about? Maybe we'll talk about that in another podcast. How do you get aligned? They're vibrational choices. There are things that you give yourself permission to give your attention to, and what you're resonating with, you are embracing as a timeline, as an experience. And so if you don't like the life that you're inhabiting, if you don't like the wave that you're surfing, you just need to go inside and think a better thought, or think something that does attract you, that feels better than where you are, and you will move to another wave, right? Or another wave will attract to you to catch that one. There's a lot of vibrational movement that happens at an energetic level. And it is a journey, and you only know how that feels. All of us, we've all surfed these waves, but we would all probably give different words to describe our experiences. But something about it is the same, is the energy is moving you. The energy is moving through you, and you're consciously choosing the energy packets that you want to be experiencing. And you learn to just sort of leave the energy invitations that you don't want to participate in. And you literally move your way, you surf your way by feelings, right? By your attractions. And if somebody is offering you some waves that keep pummeling you in your experience, like telling you you're not enough, telling you you're too big, telling you that you're making them uncomfortable, telling you they don't like the changes they see in you, or whatever those things might be, you can look at the invitation that they're offering and say, well, do I want to surf those waves with them? Like, is that where belonging with source is for me? If it isn't, we get to say, I'm going to let that wave pass. They seem to be doing just fine on that wave, and that's where they want to be right now. I'm going to vibrationally attract a different wave that feels more joyful, right? Yeah. That allows the bigness of me to join with the bigness of source, right? That I know is more of who I really am.
And trust God and ask for help. I'm always asking for help. My all call is help me, Rhonda. All the angels, God, Jesus, everybody around within earshot, this side of the veil, the other side of the veil. Help me, Rhonda. I don't want to miss any, advice from somebody.
That's highest good, though, that I would always tack on the highest good, because you can get some gremlins in there that are like, oh, I'll help out. Right.
Yeah. So listen, I'm going to have to go.
Renee, thank you. I want to thank all of our listeners. I want to thank you, Del Sol, Nancy, and Paul. This is just, we're riding the waves together. We need to remember, even if you feel alone on your wave, there's a lot of other surfers in the water with you, right? We're all being called to this.
We're in this together.
We're in this together. So I thank you. Visit us at Whole Soul Mastery. Blessings to everyone.
And blessings to everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.